Hello, E-Free. Good to see you here. We are just waiting for our friends in Church at 6 to finish up, so we will start here soon. Probably the preacher went long in Church at 6 there. That has never happened before in the history of the world, so surprising on this here. So just give us a couple of minutes. We'll bring the music back up here, and we will start probably within a couple of minutes here. So just hold on. Grab yourself a drink and get ready to go. Rich and I are ready to lead up the meeting here, and we'll look forward to hearing from you and your questions in that way. So just momentary till they're finished, then we'll join you again online.
Hello, E-Free. All those that are here, which is not very many, and those who are watching live, we thank you for picking up with us tonight. We're meeting today because we know there's lots of questions in this time of change that need to be answered, and we want, as staff and board, to respond to those questions. We want to gather as a family and to speak and give good information to the questions that are out there. In the beginning of this, I realized why God gave us the 10th commandment. Thou shalt not COVID. Actually, that's probably not right. Sorry. And because there's no one here in the crowd, it's hard to get a real response.
The roar of the laugh was deafening.
Deafening.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure across Lethbridge and around was heard on that. 10th commandment. Nice work, Rich. That's good.
So I want to, on behalf of the board, welcome you here. And I turn it over to Jeff to give some intro comments about how we're going to function tonight, and then I'll go into some of our presentation.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to pray, and then I'll give you a few things just to set up for the meeting here. God, we just come before you. We thank you so much for this church we call E-Free. Thank you for the members and those people that call this place home. We are indeed part of the family of God together. And we ask, Lord, that you would give us deep unity, deep reliance upon your Spirit, and you would continue to guide and direct us as we trust in you with all our heart, O Lord. Thank you so much for tonight, and I pray, Lord, that you would speak through us to answer questions, and also you would speak through the members and the congregants here today, Lord, just to speak your words as well. We trust you for that, Lord, in your precious name. Amen. So as Rich already mentioned, we're coming together to meet, to talk about some of the questions that you have. And I want you to know that as a staff and as a board, we are 100% unified together in this direction where we're going. And I have just loved being a part and serving in a church where there is so much unity between the board and the staff and what we're doing. And you've heard us talk multiple times about our vision and our mission and our direction where we're going. And we are seizing the time right now to move this forward. I've said this multiple times. I'll say it probably multiple times tonight as well. We are not just going to survive during this time. We want to thrive. And that's what we are going for in the midst of this. So before I turn it back over to Rich, a couple of things that I want you to note. If you have any questions, there is going to be on my, there we go, I got that up there. You will be able to go to menti.com, use the code that is on your screen there or up on the screens here. And then we just want you to put your name on it here and let us know so we can answer via your name in that way. And it's just like a connection card. The connection cards that we take in, we want everybody to put their name on it. The anonymous connection cards we have, we just throw those in the garbage. So we want you to own that here tonight. Put your name on the question there, and we look forward to answering your questions at the end here. So hopefully we answer them in between. But if there's some that are hanging on to the end here, we would love to answer those. So the only other detail I need to mention before I pass it over to you, Rich, is the washroom. If you need to use the washroom here, you can use the one right on the side there. If you need to use the washroom at home, I'm sure you know where that is, okay? Rich, hand it over to you.
Thanks for that clarity, Jeff. That was awesome. So initially when COVID hit, all of our businesses, all of our community, our churches, everything was about shutting down, what we couldn't do, what can't be done. I know for myself at work, we were actually afraid that we would have our whole business shut down, that the industry would shut down in construction. There was multiple situations where it was about what can't be done. And then, so that's what we've seen happen at the church. In the first few months, it was about what we can't do and what we have to stop doing. And then we get to a place where we realize that this is going to go on for a while. And we can't sit and wait for some switch to be hit, and all of a sudden, things will reset back to February of this year. We know that we are living and working and moving in a new normal, and that will continue to be adjusted, but this new normal will probably last for quite some time. It's just not appropriate for us to sit and wait for it to stop before we take action on things. At the August board meeting, the board asked Jeff to bring back a report about how staff had adjusted their ministry models in order to work towards the vision and mission that had been set for them. We wanted to make sure that the work of the church was being done. We wanted to make sure that we were being good stewards of the financial support we were receiving from our congregation. Jeff gave his report back to us in September, and he will be sharing that report with you here tonight. As I said, the current challenges of group gathering, etc., are not something that will be ending soon. We are committed to following the guidelines set for us by our government. We are also committed to be responsible members of our community, of our city, of our province, and of our country. We will protect the vulnerable in our community and in our church, specifically those immunosuppressed and those elderly amongst us. And in our community of Lethbridge, we are committed to doing the right thing for them health-wise. we have seen as a board, and you will see, and you already probably experienced it some this September, that ministries have restarted with major adjustments, but they have restarted. The current ministry and the future action we are going to discuss tonight fits within the budget that the members agreed to in the spring of this year at our annual general meeting. Jeff, I'd like to ask you to give your presentation about what ministry looks like with your staff at this time.
Yeah, for sure. And so I just go back and sort of review. Maybe it feels like a long time ago, but I've only been here about 19 months or so. And the first thing that we launched into, right when I came in here, was an organizational refresh of our vision, mission, and direction. And so we'll see that up here. Our mission was we love God, love one another, and love our neighbors so that people become passionately committed to hearing and obeying God and teaching others to do the same. And then we also, as a board, went out and we set forward, this is the vision that God has laid out for us here. And this is, we dream of being a movement of people who build bridges into our neighborhoods and the world because God has created a bridge of love to us. We desire to passionately follow the Father and be transformed into his likeness. We desire to graciously enfold anyone into our warm and loving Spirit-led family. And we desire to boldly love our community, speaking hope through Jesus and reaching out to those in need. And so that's what we spent the first few months doing, is reforming this. And God gave us amazing unity, once again, on the board, and then as we moved forward as a staff on this. And from this, we set out, okay, it's nice to have a mission, it's nice to have a vision, but then how are you going to move forward and fulfill this? And then we set out time where we said, okay, here are the directional statements that we are going to move forward on. And this will be familiar to you. I'll move forward a slide here. We had in this area 3 dimensions of discipleship. We had up, where we wanted to be focused on spiritual renewal. We had in, where we wanted to be focused on multiplying disciples. And then we had out, where we wanted to be focused on missional engagement. And we had 4 or 5 statements that we as a board laid out and said, here's where God is directing us. And we moved forward on that. And so this was within the first few months. Parallel to that, we were setting up systems in place so that we could move together as a unified body of Christ. We introduced a unified planning model called Ministry Action Planning, where we said to each one of our 20-plus ministries, we want you to take this mission, vision, and directional plan, go set apart some time where you're going to pray, seek God's face on how you as a ministry are going to fulfill this. They set aside time to go and do this. Team engagement with our volunteers, common goals, and actually working on new metrics. How do we know that we're making disciples? And that's the process we walk through in that way. We also introduced a level of performance reviews. So how are we doing as a staff in achieving the goals that we've laid out and move forward in this? And then we've also talked about how the staff can personally grow in their skill and ability. And we've set apart a process for that as well. We restructured our budget so that it was around in, out, and up. And we restructured our staff in this way. And we also moved towards being deeply embedded in our city so that we could become a church that if all of a sudden, for some reason, we were gone from this city, we would be missed deeply because of the way that we served and loved and impacted our city. All these were going on within the first 12 months. And then, as you guys know, March 15th came about. And that's when we moved from meeting and gathering here anywhere from 12 to 1,400 people to everything moved online. And we moved in that way. And so we had set the foundation for that. In fact, we were right in the process of setting our budget for this next ministry year that we're in right now, and all of a sudden things shifted. And so that sent us on a journey. that Rich talked about. And I'm going to talk about 4 pivots, 4 shifts that we've had since March 15th. The first was March 15th. We shifted. We said we want to do 5 things. You remember the 5 C's, maybe. We want to be good at communication, letting everybody know what's going on. So Levi, at that time, shifted to be our communications person. We put more resource into that, and we tried to communicate regularly with you as a membership and a congregation. We wanted to be about community, trying to gather people together in spite of our limitations of not being able to gather here. We were involved in a call to prayer. We wanted to make sure that we had a foundation of prayer that we were moving forward on in the midst of this. And we wanted to call people to serve and be compassionate to those people in need around them as well, to make sure that we were not just focusing on in, but we were also focusing on out. And then the last area was contribution. We needed to make sure that we were continuing to give and resource so that we could do this. And we shifted in that. We not only kept things static in our area of compassion and benevolence, but we said we want to increase our ability to give 10 times in this way. And we saw great things happen in those areas as we were prepared to reach out in need. Now, you guys know the Canadian government came in and they've been subsidizing and these sorts of things. And so we haven't had locally the need for benevolence yet, but we were also able to shift and help out internationally as well in that way. So that was our first pivot. That was huge, actually. We pivoted everything online. All our ministries moved online. That was big. Then shift number 2 came at the beginning of summer. We realized everybody was tired of Zoom meetings, all right? Put up your hand if you're tired of Zoom meetings. Yes, everybody is. Thank you for joining us here. Try to keep this one interesting. But we said we need to start getting people involved in personal relationships. And part of that, small part of it, was coming back to services here, which we launched on August 16th. But we also wanted to have an outreach focus because everybody, not just people in our church here, but everybody was tired of Zoom meetings, and they wanted to start to gather together. So we started to plan community parties. Now, we had a launch date of this on September 11th through 13th. We prepped everybody for that. We moved the congregation towards this, and we had 11 or 12 community parties. How many was it, Levi? 12, something like that. Anyways, we had about 900 people that attended these parties. And so this was just great to get us not only reaching out, but being able to connect in our communities. And so that was pivot number 2. Pivot number 3 was then 10 days after that. We pivoted to multiple services here because we wanted to shift back again to in and say our people need to get together and need to feel. We didn't want to remove any of our focus on our online services, and you haven't seen any of that. We're going to continue to focus here. But there are people who feel comfortable about gathering, particularly if we're wearing masks, if we're following all the regulations that our government has laid out for us so that we can meet safely. And we moved from 1 service at 9 o'clock to 3 services at 10 o'clock and 1 service at 6. So from 1 to 4 services. That was no small shift either, all right? But we said this is what we feel God is calling us to. And within each one of these environments, so we have 4 different environments. We're calling them relational environments. You hear them called worship services, but they're relational environments. We want people to connect in smaller groups. And so that's what we are doing right now, is we're trying to connect the people in each of our services into smaller groups. And we are also pivoting in using our bridge builders, which we started out with in that first pivot. I didn't mention that. But our bridge builders, hopefully to smaller group connections there with each of our bridge builders, being able to connect in a more intimate way, more prayerful way during this time when we're in this series. So everyone that's part of the church here at eFree feels connected in some form of a small group. So that's shift number 3. Now, shift number 4, what's that going to look like? It's coming up. I don't know when. I'm anticipating something. when we can't meet outside? What is it going to look like once the snow starts to fall? Thankfully, it hasn't fallen yet. A couple of days ago last year, we had that huge snowfall, if you remember. We actually had to cancel our 6 o'clock service because people couldn't get out of our parking lot. Thankfully, today, I think it was 24, 25, beautiful. Little windy, but beautiful, all right? So we haven't had to come to that shift yet, but that's coming up, but we want everybody to be into small groups. So that's our pivots. That's where we've come from in the first 12 months. That's what's happened in the last 6 months. Now what I want to tell you about is a little bit specifically what each of our staff is doing and how they've shifted. Because during this time, like I said, 6 months ago, in March, we had just finished our ministry action planning. All of our ministries had these plans, said here's what we're going to do in the next ministry year in September, basically August 2020 through to July 31st, 2021. Once again, COVID shifted all this. So I sent our staff back and I said, okay, I want you guys to make sure, look at your plans, adjust them, come back and report on that. And so what they did is they filled a binder with their plans right here. You can read this if you want, okay? So far, I'm the only one that has. But what I have for you, thankfully, is a summary of what is listed in this binder right here of what our ministries are doing. So I'm going to go through that now. I'll go back one slide here and just pull this up. And here is what our church organizationally looks like within our staff. Okay, so obviously, God is the leader of our church. We want to take our direction from him. We want to listen to him. Then we are a congregationally led government, which is represented by our board. And the board has an employee, and that's me. I report to the board. And then underneath myself, we have our division heads. And like I said, we've shifted organizationally. This was in our first 12 months to surrounding in, up, and out. Those are our main 3 areas right there. We also have an area called Family Ministries with Mark Dick overseas. We have a support area that encompasses our administration and our facilities. And then we also have a communication area that reports to me as well. And right now, Levi occupies that position in a dual role. All right, so that's basically the overarch there. You can kind of see where everybody fits underneath there. But I'm going to walk through individually what everyone is doing here to help you in this way. So we'll start with Ken. He oversees our up area, oversees all the staff there, and he also is our worship center service pastor here. So he oversees what happens in here at 10 o'clock. He oversees all our services, live and online, how they're delivered in this way. He leads our prayer ministry, and he's also going to execute our Christmas and Easter events. Now, just a little pause, a little tangent here for a moment. We have an awesome Christmas idea that's coming up here that we put together. And basically, it's going to be a drive-through Christmas here. And we're going to be putting it on, we think, during the Christmas week, right before Christmas Eve. And I'm so excited about this. We're still putting the details together. Ken and his team, and then our other areas of out and in are going to be helping with this. And I'm excited about this new idea here. Not only are you going to be able to come and celebrate Christmas, but it's going to be a great opportunity for you to invite your friends to say, come on and experience this in a great way. So, a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. And it'll be an opportunity for you to reach out. So, Ken is overseeing that area. Now, I'm going to go through the people that are also would report to Ken in the up area. So we have Eric Braun. He's assistant worship staff. He leads worship teams. He's helped establishing the Church at 6 ministry team. He also produces and edits our online services, of which this is a big deal. When we put effort into our online services, we had to shift many of our resources there. And that's why we were able to do that and do it well. And as I said, we are going to continue to do that. So those of you that are worshiping online with us, we're not going to let off in that area. It is still the vast majority of our congregation that is worshiping with us online. And so Eric helped out with that. We have Dave Acree, who's a part-time staff with us. He is the Minister of Seniors. We love Dave. He helps out and cares pastorally through visitation and prayer. He is our tradition service pastor here at 10 o'clock, and he's going to be shepherding those people into small groups. We have our Director of Young Adults, Luke Watson. He's overseeing our church at 6, and he oversees also our technical ministries in this area. And why, you may ask? Well, because the person who oversees our tech ministry, which we'll see in a moment here, is our friend Mike Dosso, and he is son to Ken Dosso, and so it's not good if he reports directly to his dad in that way there. So he reports through Luke to that. And Luke also is part of our preaching team. You heard him today at our services, and he also leads our young adult ministry, which is doing super well right now. Joel Gross is our assistant to young adult staff. He oversees the OUT initiative for our young adults. He's training our young adults in evangelism and supports Luke in what is going on in that area. Mike Dosso, I already mentioned him. It's a great picture of Mike right there. Love the top knot. Mike, so good. And I've never seen him with that before. I've just seen pictures of him like that. Ever since I've been here, he's just had no top knot. It's unfortunate, isn't it? I'm sure you guys all miss that. But he's just done a great job in our tech area here. So much of what you see online and how we're communicating in this way is because of how Mike has run his team. He's discipling and training people in the tech area. He's replacing our equipment. He's helped move us forward. In fact, many of the goals that we had over this next year, Mike and his team basically had to accomplish in the first month. And so he's done just a great job in that area. Here's Mark Dick, our Minister of Family Discipleship. He does family ministries and works between sort of our in and our up areas there. He is our family worship service pastor. This is a new service that goes on at 10 o'clock in our kids zone. So he's designing those services there with help from our children's ministry. He's initiating family and marriage ministries, and we'll see more of that coming up here in the fall. And he leads also and trains our connecting ministry volunteers. So what you see when you're greeted here and you come in, Mark oversees that. And he has also taken over with help from Jeremy on growing and advancing our Bridge Builder initiative, once again solidifying this as small group connecting points there. I'll remind you guys, if you have any questions for me, and this time you see there at the bottom of your screen, menti.com, just use that code there, write your name, write in your question. We have a moderator here. We'd love to answer those at the end of our time. Continuing on, we're moving to our in. Jeremy Light, our Minister of Discipleship, oversees this area. He oversees all the staff in this area. He also is our online service pastor. So if you tune in online, you see Jeremy there. He is the one that's guiding us in that area. He also oversees our community groups, which put on our parties in this time, our small group ministry, the formal one that we have, and we have about 20 or 30 of those, and then also the small groups that are going to be growing. And then we have discipleship groups that we're introducing there, groups of 3 or so people. So that's Jeremy, and he oversees these staff members. Glenda Postman is our Director of Women's Discipleship. She's part-time. She is doing lots of great stuff. You'll see at the end the groups that she is doing, but she is facilitating relational discipleship through small groups. She is directing our Moms Collective leadership team, which is doing great things as well. And then she does a lot of discipleship and pastoral counseling in her time here. We have Rosie, who is our Director of Preschool Ministries. She has shifted her ministry, and probably our biggest shifts have gone on in our children's ministry area, because a lot of them were build-in centric. And so what they've had to do is they've had to move online and provide tools for our parents and our children. And so they are running a parallel track for parents to watch during our regular services, and they are also producing materials for our parents to have that they can disciple their kids. So you see that here. They shifted in their equipping of parents to disciple their children. And that was something we were going to do over time. Anyways, but we've had to do that quickly here, and also producing online lessons and take-home packs for parents. Matt Pauls is doing the same thing in our elementary ministries, producing curriculum and material to help disciple elementary-age kids. He assists in our family worship service, and he's planning out events for our families there. We have our Director of Youth Ministries Middle School, is Jared Friesen, who currently right now is on a parental leave, but he set up his ministry well to run in the midst of this, and we've been seeing great things happen there. He's trained and equipped many of our leaders to disciple students, particularly in the small group area, which is our main focus. But we also have monthly gatherings for our grade 5-6, which are together, and our 7-8. And this keeps them under the 50-person boundary that has been laid out for us by AHS. So, and there is always a baton passing there between elementary ministries, so we can move our kids well from elementary up into grade 5-6, and then into our high school area. Director of Youth Ministries, High School, and Communications. We've added this to Levi's portfolio. So he not only works with our in area under Jeremy, but he also does support under me as well. So he, with help from Chelsea, who I'll introduce you to next, are leading our high school ministries, which is small group centric, online oriented, but they also gather and develop and train leaders here and have meetings here as well, as weather allows so far. They're planning sometime either late this year or in the new year to launch Youth Alpha to reach out to those people who need to know the love of Jesus in our high school area there. He also does our communications, and this is an area you remember from our 5 C's, that we wanted to move forward quickly and rapidly to be able to communicate well with you. And Jeremy and his team, once again, we diverted some of our admin attention to communications. And you saw a website overhaul. You saw regular videos that were being updated to you. We saw high emphasis on being able to communicate. We had a journal come out with our Daniel series. We have a great journal right now for our Lord's Prayer series. And just so many things are coming in this area here that you might tend to overlook. But there has been behind-the-scenes work that is happening in this area. And so big thanks to Levi and the team there, the admin team that has been doing great work there. Chelsea moved into, she was an intern last year. Now she's hired part-time to help out with our high school ministries, taking some of the load off of Levi's shoulders there. And during the time that Jared is off on his parental leave, Chelsea has agreed to work with us full-time to cover that month-long period there. So she's aiding in high school ministry, but also in our middle school ministry, and she's doing a great job of leading there. Move to the out area, where we have Myron Kraus leading this area of out. He's overseeing our 2 part-time staff in that area. He gives direction to global missions, to our intercultural ministries, which has been exciting, what God has been doing there. He's implementing our compassion and justice initiatives, and also helps initiate our corporate outreach. That is a big portfolio for one guy to do. And he also oversees Pam Ukrainitz, who's doing our care ministries. She's been doing a great job of that for years here. Overseeing our grief share and divorce care ministries, of which those are necessary and helpful right now in the midst of this. Oversees our visitation team. She's introducing and implementing a new sanctuary mental health program, as we think that's going to be huge in the next year to meet that need. And also shifting meal support to COVID-19 safe options. And then Don Bergen, who's also part-time, he's overseeing our benevolent aid project, and we're seeing increasing need for that, and then also launching a compassion and justice team in that area. Our last area before we get to what I've been doing over this last little while is our support. And Cindy has been doing a great job of overseeing this, obviously for many years, but she oversees all the admin and the facilities staff. She keeps track of our financial health. She manages our service and relaunch requirements and also reviews our building maintenance and upkeep there, and it's been facilitating our IT changes. Once again, that has been integral to us being online, and keeping connected as a staff and a church in this time here. Underneath Cindy in the area of support, Audra oversees our facility management, and she also has been doing tons of work in the graphic design website area here. So in the time where we weren't in the facility, she was doing so much work in communications and helping us out in that way. And you guys remember, as part of the communication, when the building was closed, we had laid off our part-time staff members. They went into the CEWS program there. And now, since we've reopened the facilities, Audra has been overseeing and scheduling our part-time custodians back in, of which we have 3. So our building is back up, and it needs to be sanitized regularly. So the cleaning of this has been done well, but there's a lot of cleaning that has to go on. There was a lot before, now there's so much more. So that's what Audra's been doing. She's been doing a great job. We replaced an administration help in the midst of this. Heather was a part of this here, and she transitioned to a different job. And then we've invited in the last few weeks here, Carol Hannon, and she's been the executive assistant to myself, also supports our in and up ministry leads, and oversees our master calendar and our church database. Jody Mason is an admin assistant, supports family and peer ministries, also does a lot of work in communication. And when you reserve online, it's because somebody like Jody has masterfully put this together and allowed us to do this. Lots of behind-the-scenes support on this to make it work smoothly. Natalie Van Schothorst is working part-time now. She is our bookkeeper here and has just done a great job with the financial, making sure that we are keeping track of this well. And Doreen Van Ham has been our newest support. She is part-time, taking over some of the responsibilities that Natalie had, and now she is our greeter. So when you come here, you'll see Doreen's smiling face in there. She also supports our intercultural ministry and general administrative needs there. And then we move to this fine fellow here, myself. What have I been doing for the last little while? Well, I oversee all our alignment of our in, up, and out support, that we are moving towards our overall mission, vision, and value. I oversee the development of our strategic plans, both lay plans where we have volunteers and also our staff plans in this way. I'm responsible for the strategic plan and direction of the church to make sure that's implemented. And I help with the board set this directional plan and set the vision and our mission and move forward in that. And then I preach and teach and keep us on a biblical focus and direction in this way. And then I lead and manage our church staff through our 6 core lead team members there. And so that has been keeping me very busy. So that is overarchingly what we are called to be doing there. And I just want to assure each and every one of you that, as Rich said right off the bat there, we are concerned that everyone is working and moving forward in our directional plan. That's been our concern from the moment that we had to move out of the facility here on March 15th. We wanted to make sure that we were continuing to serve and everybody was engaged well. And they have been doing a great job of this, and we have great plans. And we are, as I said, going to continue not only to survive, but we want to thrive and do what God has called us to do in the midst of this here. So I just want to show you a little bit of what's been happening here in September, so you know what's been going on, and just give you some numerical comparisons. Numbers don't say everything, but they do tell us something. And so I just want to give you a sense of what's going on. Not everything is listed here, but I would say that this is probably 70% of what is going on here. So, in-person services, and there's a comparison between 2019, 2020. You can see what's happening there. That 200 number is our average for September. For the first week, we had one service. Then we had the week off, not the week off, we were then in our community parties. And then we moved back, we had the one service, and then we shifted. Boy, it feels like forever ago, but that was just 2 weekends ago. Yeah. We shifted from one service to 4. That week we had 365 people here. This past weekend, so this weekend here, we had approximately 330, 40, something like that. I don't have the numbers yet from what happened in Church at 6. So that will continue to go up in that way. But as you can see by our numbers, really, we only have about a quarter of our people that are currently attending right now. So our reach continues to be, and our discipleship continues to happen well through our online services there. And you can see our number there. That's views within 48 hours. So last year, we had approximately 150 views in 48 hours. Now we're having just under 1,300. So our measurement, that number there, we could have a huge, probably, hour and a half discussion about how we get that number. We're not going to, okay? That's approximately what it is. We know we've been keeping track over the last few months about what's been happening there. It's been staying pretty consistent according to this. Young adults, you can see last year we had 173, this year 115, so that's staying there. And you see our small groups have grown. Amazing in this way. And you'll see that consistently as we go through. Our high school kickoff, a few less at the large group event, but in our small groups, it's grown. Middle school kickoff, a few less in that, and our small groups are down just a touch, but growing. Preschool escape. Now, this was something that we ran inside our facility. Now we've been trying it outdoors, and that still is gaining traction there. Women's Bible study. Once again, these were our Wednesday Bible studies, all indoors. We're shifting to this, but we can only have 50 at a time in this area. This is a new Betrayal and Beyond group that we just launched. It's maxed out right now. Our Moms Collective gathers here in our facility. Once again, it's maxed out because we can only have 50 at that point. Our IF tables, there's 12 groups that meet outside our church facility, staying remarkably consistent in this. And these are our women's ministry areas. Our intercultural kickoff we had here, this is just a great thing. It was a Canadian Fall Festival. And they had, I'm going to forget the name, but the line dancing grannies were here. That's what they're called exactly, but it's close. And our intercultural people gathered, they ate poutine, they had a great time out in our parking lot here. And that was a ton of fun, just to see that continuing. And we want to continue to reach into that area. That's one of the big thrusts that our board has said. We want to continue to reach out to the world at our doorstep right here in Lethbridge. Divorce care, grief share, and our sanctuary mental health. Lots of time there, people that need help, and our friend Pam is doing a great job in those areas. So you can see what's going on. The ministry has shifted and changed, but it is still happening here in this way. So we can talk about this in a moment here when we talk about budget. But once again, if you have questions on this, that concludes essentially what we are doing here, what God has been calling us, and how we've shifted to continue to accomplish our mission and our vision that God has called us to. If you have questions about that, love to answer those. And you can see there at the bottom of the screen, not this screen, but the one before, You can go to menti.com. You can use that code, punch that in, send it in. We have a moderator here that would love to answer that question there. So, Rich.
Can I ask a question right from here?
You can when we have Q&A time.
Good.
That's right. All right. That'd be great. Rich?
One of the things we've realized when we were discussing this meeting and the board's actual questions of the staff is that you come to things were back in normal a year ago, you come to a service and you wonder, you don't have to wonder if the kids ministry is going on because they're screaming over there, and you hear all that activity, and when you go to the foyer on your way out, you hear that that's going on. You see the activity of all the other ministries going on when you come to a large gathering. You know that the youth are being ministered to, or the young adults are being ministered to, because you know that the Church of Six is going on. But what happens when we get a bit isolated and we take in the ministries that we do that are just for us is sometimes we aren't able to see all the other things that are going on. And so that's one of the wonderful things about having a report like this, that helps us to see all the things that are going on that we're not participating in, but that God is still using and our staff are busy doing. And so as a board, we want to thank the staff and thank you, Jeff, for putting this together and the information, and for realigning for the kickoff this fall for this new ministry season. As I stated earlier, this current reality is not something that we can responsibly sit back and wait for it to end. This work that is being done is continuing, and the work of our church that we are called to do is continuing. When we start to look now at whether we should be hiring at this time, the situation of ministry and of what God is calling us to do continues. And we need to respond to that call, because it's not as if all of a sudden next March a switch will happen and we can do things the way we've done them before. We want to be able to respond to what God is calling us to do now, and there is an effective, efficient ministry that is happening with large numbers and with a great efficiency of staff. These new hires that I want to talk about, they were allowed for in the budget that we as a congregation passed after March 15th. This isn't something that was done before we knew what we were getting ourselves into. The previously advertised and now filled administrative positions are staff replacements, or FTE reductions that needed to be filled. There's no new hours and no new staff positions that are in those hires. So those were advertised and those have been filled. One of the new hires is a replacement of a vacated staff position. When Josh left, that was a position that we had and had budgeted for, and one of these new hires that I want to talk about is the filling of that position. Only one, the executive pastor support position for Jeff, is a position of increased staffing. Let me review now the board's position for coming out of our September meeting on these hires. Number one, the Minister of Community Engagement. About a year and a half, I believe, or 2 years ago, Dr. Gary Nelson from Tyndale came and spoke to our leadership and came and spoke to our church here in Lethbridge. And something he stated to the board when he spoke to us, he says, if you think that your community thinks you are relevant, you are kidding yourself. The church is speaking a language that our culture doesn't understand and doing things that our communities could care less about. That needs to change. This is some of the impetus of some of the journey we've been on as a church and as a board and as staff on why we need to minister to our community here locally. And that's what this position would be reacting to. During Jeff's interview, when we were hiring him, he shared his experience and the topic of his doctoral thesis. The basic idea was that as we minister to our community, we not only touch those we minister to, but we touch those we minister with in our community. Part of our mission statement is that we long to build bridges of love into our community, because in response to God building a bridge of love to us. The past few years, there have been a number of ways God has opened doors for us to be involved in our local community. in response to social needs. God has also been changing our practice about how we respond to our community. For instance, Advent Conspiracy. A couple years ago, we did an Advent Conspiracy where we raised, I think it was well over $50,000, and we donated that money to the school districts for them to respond to social needs within the schools. We gave that money to them to use wisely, releasing our hands of it and blessing it for them to use. Traditionally, this would not have been how our church has functioned, or many churches would have functioned. That would have not been our MO. We have also been asked, and we have been and responded to our community's needs in response to COVID as well. We've done a lot of things for our community and been participating with other organizations and on our own as we responded to the community needs in response to COVID. And this is something new for us. Myron, Jeff, myself, some of the other staff and the board have been involved in multiple discussions about other options for us to respond to social needs in our community. One of the ways that this is happening is the City of Lethbridge has recently, through their social development division, has started a major restructuring initiative to evaluate the needs and then coordinate the services within the city. This initiative is called Community Wellbeing and Safety Strategy. Not by chance, I have been asked to sit on this committee. I'm sitting with the city and about 15 other community organizations in response to social needs within the city. I'm there representing the business community, but also it's no secret that I'm also representing the Christian perspective. The city has invited us specifically as a Christian church to coordinate our efforts with their city-assessed needs. They've opened the door to minister with and to our city. It's never been opened so wide before. Without apology, we're being asked to come and help minister to the social needs of our community. And they're prepared to work beside us without us apologizing for the fact that we come with a Christian perspective of bringing wholeness to people who are created in the image of God. This has not been secret, and they are open to that, to working with existing social need response groups in the city. Never has this door been so open. A few years ago, God called us to build a wing over there for the kids ministry. We responded because we believed that that was the way he was going to reach people and bring them back into relationship with himself, to join back with the community of faith. We responded to God's call as a church, and God has been faithful. The activity through the children's ministry, through the family ministry that has happened through that wing and through that initiative and through our efforts and our leadership has been the major way God has built and grown and called people to himself in the last number of years. This new initiative, the board and staff at our church believe that this is God's call for us to be faithful at this time, this response to community social needs. We believe that our response to the needs around addictions and homelessness, along with other associated social needs, is the next step of faith we are being asked to take. We are already in conversation with multiple partners, both Christian and non-Christian, in how we can be involved and how we are being invited to be involved in response to addictions and housing. We need a staff member to head this up because Myron has committed to too many other things. This is too big a job for one person to take on. Myron is committed to leading and growing the intercultural ministries within our church and internationally. Myron has been taking on both of these areas of the out ministry, but both areas are growing and will continue to grow if we invest well. We need to invest with volunteers, with funds, and with leadership. As far as the position of executive pastor, during the senior pastor search process, the board and search committee got together and discussed the position and the needs of our church. It was determined before we advertised the position of senior pastor that we needed to hire both a senior pastor and an executive pastor. The job description of senior pastor was defined with the acknowledgement that an executive pastor would be hired to split some of the responsibilities. At that time, as we have anticipated growth and observing how things had been going until now, it was clear that Ian and some of his staff had taken on jobs that they were not best suited for, and they were overloaded. They had done them because they needed to be done, and because they were willing servants of the church. Jeff and his staff leaders have continued to take on these responsibilities. These are challenging times to lead, this time of upheaval. It takes more work to lead well in these times than it does when things are normal. Jeff and some of his leadership team are working far too many hours and doing far too many things that aren't in their wheelhouse. With all of the changes, there is always another reorganization to plan and execute, along with more traditional ongoing ministry needs. If we want to be healthy, effective, and efficient, this hire is also necessary. Now, focusing on the budget discussions around these hires. The faithful giving of our congregation is not taken for granted. Staff and leadership committed at the last general meeting to continue to minister well and to remain light on their feet to adjust to income shifts. At our year ending August 2020, we ended with a surplus of receipts over spending. We treat this financial commitment by all of you as a sacred responsibility. The budget we affirmed for this ongoing year was equal to the budget of the previous year, and these decisions fit within the accepted budget. None of this is outside of that budget. A few months into this fiscal year, the giving at EFCL is above that of a year ago. We are behind budget, but not more than other years as we enter the fall. There are areas of budget other than ministry spending that can be adjusted if needed in order to continue to be financially responsible, Jeff, did you want to touch on the budget, where things are at?
So we've just putting that up on the screen there, and as you can see, our budget exact same as last year. Our receipts are pretty close to each other there. We were up a little bit last year. That could do with number of Sundays in the year at that point, and our disbursements are pretty close to equal in that way. So I just reiterate what's been said here already is we don't take the giving for granted. And our church here at E-Free, you guys have been generous and on site. And that's really why I'm sitting here with a smile on my face to say with you, we love being part of this family. And we love the generosity here. And we want to be great stewards of that to continue to see and allow Jesus to build his church in this way. You know, upon this rock I will build my church, Jesus says, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And we want to be part of the church that is prevailing here in our city. We want to continue to reach out, and we want to continue to build disciples here and give God the worship that he's due. So I'm so happy to present this, and at the same time, for us to continue to move forward, we need to continue to ask you guys to be generous. And I say the same thing to myself. Janelle and I talk about this. We want to be more generous in this time. I
just want to make some clarity. I made these notes after our meeting in September. I didn't mean to mislead you. I see that as of September 30th, the giving of this year is lower than the previous year. I wasn't misleading you there. I mentioned that the giving of this year the receipts were over the previous year. That was as of the board meeting in September.
That's right. So yeah, these are our very up-to-date as much.
Very current.
Yeah, up to the 30th of September there. Yeah, good.
So I want to thank you for your concern, your passion, and your prayers. I want to thank you for your involvement in ministry. I hope that today's description of the ministries that are going on and the people that are being touched answers some questions about what we're doing and what ministry looks like now. I hope that some of the presentation also answers questions about why we believe we need to move on certain areas of hiring. Those are questions that we've heard coming from our congregants and are responding to. I hope mostly that this has been a journey that has helped us as a body of Christ here together at Free Lethbridge. This is a work and a community that we love to be part of, and we take our leadership of it and our stewardship of the positions you've given us with very high regard. So thank you very much for your attention. And I guess I'll open it up to Levi if there's questions that he has for us.
Right on. So do you have some questions, Levi?
I do have some questions for you guys. Before I start, I just want to say that if you are joining online, you can, on Facebook and on YouTube, there's just a quick link right there. You can click on it. Make sure to add your name before you write a question, just so that I'm able to actually ask it.
Let's make sure Abe's question, who's in the congregation or in the sanctuary here, gets asked as well.
Yes, we do have one person in the building right now that will want to ask a question later on as well. So just to start some stuff off, I'm going to kind of go from questions that happened at the beginning. So this is directed more towards you, Jeff. There's a question here about the framework of Up, In, and Out and where family ministries fits. Mm-hmm. Typically, it had previously fit in the in category, and so they're wondering why is it currently not in the in category and where it fits with Up, In, and Out and Mark's position. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and family ministries would generally fit within that in area as well. This has some to do with function of family ministries, and some to do with the fact that Mark is he's a great minister, and so for him to report, say, directly to Jeremy or something like that, it just felt better if he reported to me in the midst of this. And where we would like to take family ministries is pretty broad in the area of marriage and family, and then also in this new family service that Mark is launching. And Mark also had a part of his job description, which he was able to write in this. I said, hey, Mark, why don't you sit down and write a job description? Part of that is giving pastoral oversight to our Sunday morning. And, of course, that shifted a little bit here, but that was a piece of that as well. And so Mark, instead of reporting up through in, which would be Jeremy, he reports directly to me in that way. So it's sort of balancing person and function in that way.
Awesome. One other question here. You mentioned small groups, that we're moving towards small groups. Can you talk a little bit about the success that we've had with small groups in the past and why we're moving forward with that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you've heard me probably say this a few times, but life change happens in small groups. The smaller the group, the better. And particularly, you guys know, in this time here, where we may not and have not at some points been able to gather more than 15 people. And so if that ever shifts again, we're praying, and so far we haven't had to do that here in Alberta, but we hope that never happens again. But if it does, we want to be able to shift everybody into smaller groups in that way. So there's a spiritual function to it. You can't become accountable to everybody sitting in this room. And so a small group helps you become accountable, helps be a place where you can confess sin, where you can help people along in their spiritual walk, shepherd and be shepherded, love and be loved, care for and be cared for. You can't do that in a large group like this. And so we want to move down into that small group. Now, we've seen this be successful basically in all areas, like our middle school ministry, our high school ministry, our young adult ministry. And you see in our numbers there that we showed before that there are actually more people generally in our small group areas in those than there are in the large group gatherings, because that's where people are connecting. And that's what we want to see as we move into adult ministry. And we're seeing this also in our women's ministry. So many great small groups and different expressions there. And there's a care that is to be had at that level there. And that's what we long for. So hopefully I hit on that there.
I think so,
That's a big deal.
Yeah. One question here says, can you address the role of rural attendees in our church? It seems that there's been a recent shift in our language, and we focus more on Lethbridge compared to the rural areas.
Oh. That is unintentional. It is, we want to focus on the rural areas as well. I usually say in surrounding areas, just for efficiency's sake, instead of naming all the different areas, and I'm sure I'm going to miss someone because, you drive through Barnwell, and I want to reach to Barnwell, I want to reach to Tabor, I want to reach to Colehurst, I want to reach to Standoff.
No, you started listing them, now you're going to miss one.
I know, that's the problem. So, no, we want to reach our area here, and we're able to do that with our size, for sure.
That is a good reminder, though, Levi. It's a good reminder that a lot of our congregants come from outside of the city of Lethbridge, and it's a good reminder for leadership to make sure we're hearing those voices and responding to needs in those communities as well.
One question here says, can you comment on the decision to move services that are based on age and family type?
Yep. Yeah. So we were averaging about 120 people per service, starting on August 16th through to right at the beginning of September. And so we just said, either people are feeling uncomfortable or they're not feeling invited into an area. And so generally, if you were to press me, and I would say proximity, i.e. your neighborhoods, are very important because you're going to bump into those people. But there also is a sense where affinity is also helpful. And so we said, well, why don't we bring back our traditions service? And Dave Akery called around to 10, 12, 15 different of our traditions people that said, hey, if we put on a service there, would you guys come? They said, 100%. Actually, 100% of the people that he called said, yeah, they would. That was surprising to me. So we said, let's do that, but let's also, this is the shift we're making. We want to get people into small groups so they can connect in this way. Okay, why don't we try a family service? Because there weren't a lot of young families coming into our auditorium here with their young kids. They're like, my kids are just going to be running around, yelling all the time. Well, let's use our kids zone area there. Let's invite all families in there. So if their kids run around, it doesn't matter. Everybody's kids are running around in there. And so it's been more, once again, an adjustment to where we're at right now in this. And we have to, we seat 750 in here, but we can only have 200, between 220 and 250, depending on how many families sit together and things like that. In our gym, we can only seat, normally we could seat, I think we crammed up over 300 in there, okay? Now we can only have like 80-ish. In there, I think we can have somewhere around 100 if we sit them around tables in that. So, once again, we're trying to shift and adjust and use this tool of this facility that God has given us here to adjust so that we can minister and move people into small groups. That's because that's what's going to sustain us. It's what's going to help us to continue to disciple and continue to reach out.
All right.
Yeah.
We have a few more questions here,
Yeah.
but before we get to these ones, I want to give Abe just an opportunity to share his question.
Abe?
I just really appreciated the comment on the ministry of the pastors and the shifts that they had to make for this time. So are we to take for granted that the present staff is committed to the end of the year 2020? Or are we possibly looking at some shifts? I don't know if you can answer that.
Yeah.
But, I'm just curious, with a deliberate plan, you don't want to be shifting people too quickly right away.
Right. That's right. Yeah, so I think the question basically, for those people online, is, you can add if you need to, but are our staff, as constituted and seen on, are they committed to stay to the end of 2020 and beyond? That's sum up, yeah. The simple answer to that is yes. Everybody is in this way. Now, we made a commitment to our membership, though, as well, that based on giving, we would maybe have to make adjustments. And so that is also there as well. And that the specter is there, right? To say the budget that the membership stamped back in, was it end of May, beginning of June, in there, was 100% budget. We weren't going up. We were going to stay the same because we felt with that level we could thrive. And this includes adding the staff that we talked about here tonight. And all the staff said, yep, we're in to keep it at that level. And we as a board, we want to be fiscally responsible in the midst of this. Say, yes, we're on track. As we have our faith in God, we are going to continue to move forward in that. And the staff as a whole is behind that as well. Yeah.
And as I said in part of my presentation, there are other areas where we would respond first before we would touch employment. Yep. Where if there was needed to be budget adjustments, so we will remain light on our feet, but we also will do the right thing so that we can be stewards of the funds that we have.
I have a question here about the emotional health of our staff. Can you guys comment on the emotional health of our staff? As people in ministry, we know that COVID journey has been exhausting. How are our staff doing? Is there a way that the congregation can ensure that they are being fed, encouraged, and cared for?
I'll let Jeff speak about his staff, but Jeff is our staff, and Jeff and I meet regularly. Jeff and myself and Tyler and Jeff get together, and Jeff. There are lots of times when Jeff's exhausted, and yet he has. Ian used to talk about different sizes of trucks going down the highway. He has a lot of capacity, but I think it's being stretched, and we're pushing to an edge. But on the other side of that, he has also got lots of gas in the tank for ministry that fits his sweet spots. So are we concerned and do we pay attention? Yes. Are we scared that he's crashing? No. But do we need to make adjustments in staffing? Yes. So.
Yeah, and I'd say that's consistent through our when you make shifts like we have in the last 6 months, those 3 pivots, it costs. And the staff is doing it willingly, for the most part. When I came to them, it's 22 days ago now, I think, and said we're going to shift from 1 service to 4 services, there was a little groan there, but not too much. All right, they willingly went for it there, and everybody said, "Yeah, we feel God moving. It's going to cost us to get there," but they did it. But that is one of the things that we are managing and we want to see as a staff. And I oversee this for the 6 people that report to me. And then those 6 people are also overseeing our staff and making sure that we're keeping on track. But we have to make good adjustments there. We have to be wise. We have to be willing to talk to each other in the midst of this and make sure we're keeping our eyes open. So yes, we are doing that. But yes, it's also cost us in the midst of this. So that's where we love your support and your prayers. I am biased, but I work with the best staff in Alberta, probably in Canada. I just haven't seen all of them. So, yes, and they are doing a great job, but we need your prayers, we need your support. And frankly, the board is awesome, unified, supporting us well. You guys as a membership, we felt so supported in this way, not only financially, but hearing the great things that have been going on in your life and how much you appreciate the staff. Just keep that coming. That really lifts up. And keep telling us the stories about what God is doing in your life. Man, that pumps gas in our tanks. And so thank you for that.
All right, we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions, so
Yeah.
I want to let people know that if you've asked a question, all of these questions will be forwarded onto the board and to Jeff and our staff team, and there'll be opportunity for them to discuss and then maybe respond to some of these questions in the future, specifically at our next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or we'll send out a board report, possibly with a board communication on some of these, if there's general questions that we can lump together and respond that way, for sure.
Definitely. I've got 3 more questions.
You betcha. And I can try and be quicker here too.
Let's
so-
watch our
Yeah.
time.
So, has the church been able to take advantage of government assistance programs to help with wages?
Yes. We have been since day one that they've offered that, a payroll reduction tax. And we had a team that we called the Financial Action Team, which is our fat team there. They aren't fat people on this, but they have been doing a great job of keeping track on this. So yes.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, our giving didn't drop enough, so we couldn't get all the subsidies we wanted.
Yes.
Can you guys explain the different ways that people can attend face-to-face services? This is just a clarification question.
Yeah. As timing wise, is that what?
I think timing-wise, and if we're accepting walk-ins, do they have to book ahead?
Right.
What if someone has a friend that they want to invite?
Yeah, generally it's helpful. Okay, so we have four services that we're running right now. 3 at 10 o'clock, which is our tradition service, our worship center service, and then also our family service, okay? So those 3 happen at 10 o'clock, and then there's church at 6, which happens at 6 o'clock. It is very helpful for us if you register ahead of time. But we do accept walk-ins. Just come a little bit early so we can register you in that way.
Awesome. And all information's on our website.
Yes,
as
go
well.
to our website. We've done a great job of overhauling that. Really user-friendly. Everything's up there. Levi keeps that up to date regularly. Audra helps out with that as well. So
Good
really
plug for yourself there, Levi.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know, I
So
got to
good.
keep people informed. So, one last question here. You mentioned benevolent aid, and in the past, that had been more focused on our church, people within our church family. Has that shifted at all? Are we caring for people outside? I know you mentioned this a little bit, but
Yep.
are we caring for people outside? Is that included in the benevolent aid response?
Yeah, that's right. So we are shifting in our out area in that. Benevolence is also going to help people in our church, for sure. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate, because, somebody comes here once or twice. Are they part of our church? Yes. People who haven't attended here, do we want them to be part of our church? Yeah, because we want the church body to minister to them in this way. So it's both and in this. We want to offer benevolent help to people in the church, and also we want to help those people outside the church. And that in a way, or not in a way, helps us to build relationship. And from that relationship, that gives us a platform then to share with them the hope of Jesus Christ. And this is what Matthew 25 talks all about.
And I know you mentioned it, but within the budget that has been set, that benevolent fund has gone up substantially because we anticipate that there will be more need coming, and so we are open to that in a major way.
All right, thank you guys so much for answering the questions. I want to remind people, if they do have questions, they can answer. For the next 2 days, this link will be open, so if you would like to ask a question, our board will try to respond in the next board report or in a meeting coming up in the future. So ask away. We'd love to answer your questions.
I'll just close in prayer. Are you finished?
Yes,
Usually
I am
you
finished.
have some more to say, but you're done?
Not tonight. I've
Okay.
spoken too much already.
Okay. I'll close in prayer. I want to thank you. Father, we thank you for your love for us. We thank you for calling us to be your church. Help us to do this well. Help us to be ambassadors of bringing your kingdom to come, your will to be done here on earth. Pray for all the ministry and the work that's being done. I really want to pray for our staff tonight, the work that they're putting in and the effort they're putting towards ministering to your people and ministering to our city and ministering to those who call this church their home. Father, I just pray for them that they would be given energy, given the knowledge that your Spirit indwells them, that they would be empowered and gifted by you so that they could do this wonderful work for us, and we thank you for them. Pray for the volunteers here at the church. I pray that we would all realize that those small and large tasks that we take on for the body, that we would feel responsible, and we would use our gifts well as we minister to those amongst us. Father, I pray for the things that seem to be opening in front of us for new areas we want to step into. I just pray that we would be wise in those decisions, that we would be wise as we communicate with our congregants, with the members here, and we would be wise as we communicate with our city and community around us, so that the work that is being done would truly honor you and you would be glorified. All these things we bring to you, and we thank you for your leading and guiding, and the fact that you love us so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
I do have one more thing I would like to say, just in listening to Rich's prayer right there. It is imperative that if you feel comfortable coming to our services here, that you engage at a volunteer level. And most importantly, we need people who will lead small groups and take a leadership step forward. But there are also, we need people who will come and they'll play their instruments. Need people who will come and greet people here. And there is a continuing need for volunteers to come and say, you know what, I'll be a part of what goes on here and I'll invest in this. And also our ministries outside that we've talked about this as well, and who will connect in bridge builders and who will connect in that way with those people on our online congregation, which we get people teasing in and out all the time, checking us out online, and just being able to connect with them and love them in that way and connect technically with them. So if you have room and space to volunteer, we would love to see each and every one of you volunteer in that way and connect and help us minister and reach our city and surrounding area,
Exactly.
including the rural areas, for Jesus.
Is there, just an off-the-cuff question, with all the extra cleaning that's having to happen in between services, is there volunteer need in that area as well? Just
There
as somebody had a
certainly
few
is.
years.
Yeah, Audra and Cindy would love to hear from you if you can come and do some cleaning here. That would be very helpful for us in this way to continue to be able to use this facility that we have here as a tool for ministry.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.